Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Edge, where we sit down with industry leaders to discuss the innovations and ideas shaping the future of marketing. I'm Lisa Morton, Director of Marketing at Incubeta, and today we're turning our focus to measurement and primarily why marketers are struggling to trust their reporting and performance data. I have been incredibly lucky to sit down with Ash Rane, APAC's Data Director, to discuss and break down the challenges facing marketers today when it comes to their measurement. We covered everything from building solid measurement foundations and cross-channel data to the role AI, privacy, and MMM play. Ash shared clear practical advice, which is what I love about this chat, on how to cut through complexity and make smarter, more confident decisions. If you're looking to optimize your approach to measurement and build trust in your marketing performance, this episode is packed with valuable insights to help you outperform. So let's dive in. Hi, Ash. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All the way from Australia. I hope it's warm where you are today.
Well, unfortunately, we're in our winter, so it is a bit cold. But I think our winter is your, spring.
I was going to say, I think we see winters very differently. So, to get us kicked off, I'd love to learn more about your role as data director and how you build innovative solutions and actionable data strategies for your clients.
Sure. So a great part of my role is I get to manage a few different people within the team, both here in Sydney and Melbourne, which is two cities in Australia. And I also have a dotted line connection to our great team that sits out of Malaysia, which was the Persuasion acquisition. And my focus is really around understanding our clients' needs and how we can solve their problems leveraging data and making sure that when they do spend their money on various different advertising platforms, whether it's Google, whether it's Meta, whether it's TikTok, they're really getting the most for their investment. And so understanding at a fundamental level how that data connects, from different actions taken on the websites to how much their clients' customers spend across their businesses, bringing that together and then understanding the impact on which marketing strategies are the best to associate to that spend.
Now, I think over the past, 3, 4 years now, what people have really been talking about is how to do more with your data, how to trust your data. And that trust seems to be something that people are really struggling with. But why is that such a challenge for us?
I'll probably have a theme to a lot of my answers, and it's going to come down to the fundamentals of measurement, and that really begins with a measurement strategy. And a lot of customers out there, they don't have that basic measurement strategy that dictates what's being collected, when, where, how, who has access to it, how it can be used. All of this is really core foundations that need to be built from the very start, and they help empower marketers, analysts to understand what the data is, what they're looking at, and how they can use and leverage it. A lot of that mistrust also comes down from industry changes. So in the last decade, which I've been in the industry for multiple decades now, in the last decade, there's been a real surge in privacy awareness, in fundamental tracking inabilities, thanks to things like ITP, for example. So iOS devices not being able to track user actions anymore on websites and apps. So a lot of this has led to misunderstanding. So it's not necessarily miscapability, it's more misunderstanding. Because users do want to maintain their privacy and we should respect that. So how can we build tools and platforms around ensuring that we maintain customer privacy and still be able to effectively measure our marketing campaigns?
That was definitely a whirlwind of like, oh my God, what does this mean? What are sessions versus traffic?
It was definitely a big change for a lot of people.
I privacy's been something we've been talking about for multiple years. We've really seen that shift and transition. But there's still, you talk about this need for the core strategy and starting from the ground up. But there's still this really basic fundamental need that we're missing. So how do marketers really start implementing that? And we'll start with that question and then I'll go into the second half because this can be a long-winded question.
Yeah, and that is a great question. So, start point again, as I said, it's that measurement framework, it's that measurement strategy, understanding at the base level. Well, what is it that you want your users to do? What are the actions that you're providing them, and that they can take on your website, on your app, in store. If it's to buy something, relatively simple, just track the shopping cart. If it's to, say, submit some information or a lead generation, things start to get a bit more trickier because where do you track? How much do you track? In the past, it's definitely been about just track everything, track every action, anything the user does, any mouse movement. And that led to a lot of misunderstanding again because there was just too much data, there was too much to shift to. So now there's a real core focus on just track what you need and understand what signals users are trying to send you. A really simple example is if you have a form that people have to enter certain information in, don't send what they're entering, but just send in which fields they focus in on at each step of the journey so that you can figure out, oh, okay, maybe there's one element of my form that's driving people to bounce out of that application.
I think from my side as well, what I see a lot as a marketer is just really figuring out those areas to focus on. Because you're right, there is so much data and it's so overwhelming sometimes. And I find I either get into the nitty gritty detail or like the big overview, and then I end up with not really understanding stuff. And from your side, how do you use data to tell that actual story from what your marketing is doing and what your work is doing?
So I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said story, because it's really understanding what journey did customers go on. So a big function that we run with all of our customers is a journey mapping workshop, where we would actually go and we'd sit with the client and we would walk through the exact actions they expect their users to do. We look at what they click on, we look at how they engage, do they scroll, is there a pop-up? We look at all these different interactions that can happen and we mark what is currently being tracked, what isn't being tracked, and then how we can actually upskill and enable them to track what's missing. So we can focus on this very specific journey for each different goal, and that allows us to understand the story. What journey is that user going on? Where is that journey breaking? Right? Where is the journey? Where is the user leaving the website or the app? And being able to then tailor that understanding into okay, well, the users are getting to point 6 in the journey, and then there's a 40% drop off rate. Maybe it's because they have to go and physically get a credit card. So what are some alternative actions we can put in there to ensure the user continues with their journey smoothly?
Now, I love the term journey because that is what they're doing. It's not oh, I've just come to your site and I've decided to buy something or I've decided to interact. It really does take a long time. And when you're doing marketing, there's so many different fragmented source of data, whether that be your social media, your paid advertising, your in-person activities. How do you recommend that people start looking to bring all of that together and stop this fragmentation of data?
So there is no such thing as data silos anymore. Data is just everywhere, and how you connect and bring it together into a single source is the real magic. So being able to have a platform such as say Google Cloud Platform, where you can bring all your data into a single source, and then be able to query and manipulate the results from that single source, takes a while. It's not an overnight solution. It takes a few months or years even to really get to that point. And that always comes back to that core fundamental, which is what is my measurement strategy? So when I have data sitting in, say, meta campaigns across Instagram and Facebook, when I have data sitting inside TikTok, when I have data sitting inside Google Ads, how can I bring all that together into a single, say, Google BigQuery table to ensure that I'm measuring, okay, an impression means an impression means an impression. A click means a click means a click. So we all talk the same language across all of our platforms. And so that would require a data schema. Right? And the data schema comes all the way back to our measurement strategies and our measurement framework. So again, having those foundations and the fundamentals built will ensure that anything we build on top of that will only rise and keep going up and up and up.
Now, I can imagine if you're at the beginning of your data journey, this all sounds very overwhelming because it's just so much to consider. And Most of us are not data experts because it can be quite complex. Is is it as complex as it seems? Does it need to be as complex as it seems? Is there a way to get started to make it feel like it's just not such an overwhelming, daunting task?
Yes, so usually what we do recommend is having some sort of discovery session with, say, partners like us, where we can really peel back all those complex layers and get to the core of the issue. Whether it's selling a product, generating a lead, trying to supply certain information, we can come at it from an objective view and really understand, well, what's at the core? What is the core measurement that we first need to tackle and apply, again, building that measurement strategy first, thus then leading into, okay, well, what's the next level? Where do we bring in more data from? How do we incorporate that? The ultimate goal is to ideally be able to use your data to help make smarter decisions on where you spend your investments.
Now, one of the things that we've at Incubeta have been really excited about recently is we have gotten access to Meridian, Google's MMM system, MMM platform.
Modeling.
That's the word I was thinking of. So we've gotten access to Meridian, and we have access to Robin as well, which is Meta's modeling. How important is MMM and so mixed media modeling? How important is it for businesses to be looking at their business and their marketing in this way?
I might be a bit biased here, but I would say it's critical, right? So mixed media modeling, marketing mixed media modeling, modeling media mixing, whichever way you want to sew it together, effectively describes how are you spending your money, where is it going, and which platforms are driving the most revenue back to that spend, right? How do you measure your return on your investment? Now, you don't necessarily need to have a perfect solution to ensure that you're getting value from it. What we do recommend is you start small. So feed in your core channels first. Google's, TikToks, Meta, Instagrams. Understand, okay, at a channel level, how is my spend reflecting on the revenue that I'm generating, or the conversions that I'm generating, or the leads that I'm bringing in. From there, we can then refine. We can add additional sources. Well, maybe I want to split my Google spend by brand versus non-brand. Maybe I want to split my Meta by targeted audiences versus shotgun approach. Send everything into everyone. As you start refining, you'll start to see the differentiations in your campaigns and how that reflects in the reporting. And the idea is not to necessarily have the perfect model, which will give you a 100% solution every time. The modeling will deliver what we call hypotheses, so ideas, concepts. Hey, if you want to spend more money in brand, then channel A, B, and C is where you should increase your investment. So how about we take that and we turn that into a geolift study, an experiment in a certain geo region where I do the exact actions the model tells me to do, and I see what the results are. If the results are positive, then I know that my hypothesis was true. If the results are not positive, then I know maybe the hypothesis is wrong and I need to refine the data that I'm feeding the modeling. And it becomes then an iterative approach. But I did touch on something, is it's the combination of the modeling and the experimentation that helps us get those answers.
So I'm going to throw out another acronym out there because we love our acronyms in digital. Universal Media Modeling. I'm guessing that's what it stands for. It is one of those ones that talks about how we bring this triangulation with our measurement. MMM is part of it. Experimentation is another part of it. And then attribution, I believe, is the third part.
Correct.
And it looks at how individually those three areas have strengths and weaknesses, but together we can form a much stronger stronger approach. And you talked about experimentation and MMM and how those two working together really build up. Can you talk about how those three weave together and really why you can't focus on one but really should be trying to evaluate all three together?
Yeah, so we actually call this our gold standard. So it's the combination of building and modeling, building and mixed media modeling, having the experimentation verify the modeling, and then being able to apply attribution at the channel levels to distribute the revenue that's the modeling is showing us. So when you combine all three of those, you're able to get a bit more of an accurate reflection as to how your investments in the different campaigns are going. A real world example, or just an example, let's say you've built a model and it's running and it's saying, oh, you need to if you want to increase your brand awareness, you need to increase your Google ad spend. So that's your hypothesis. You then build an experiment which says, okay, well, in one geo region, I'm going to increase my Google ad spend for brand campaigns. In another similar region, I'm going to decrease my spend in Google ad spend, in brand campaigns. And I'll test the results with the assumption being that the one where you increase your spend, you had a better awareness campaign, and where you decrease your spend, you didn't have a good awareness campaign. So that will then understand, okay, cool. When I increase my brand campaigns, I get better awareness. But that doesn't tell you which specific campaigns led to that high increase in awareness or which specific keywords. This is when we then take to the individual platform itself and we look at the attribution in the platform to say which keyword was the a combination that drove that change.
You mentioned that this is the gold standard for the creme de la creme, let's call it, of measurement. Who really should be looking at UMM? Is this just because it's the gold standard doesn't mean it's not for everybody, or is this really multi-country, intense campaigns, huge spend? Like, who should be really diving into a UMM strategy?
At this point, there is no real kind of, okay, yep, this is my definite draw the line. If I'm below this, I can't do mixed media modeling, or if I above this line. What it comes down to is you need certain data points. So, for example, you need at minimum 2 years of historical data on campaign spends, clicks, on conversions, keeping the categories the same over those 2 years. Because really, the power of the modeling comes from the differences in change that you've applied over time. So naturally, as campaigns come and go, spend goes up and down across different channels, across different types of campaigns, across different types of products. And the modeling really comes into its own power when there is frequency and change in the historic data. So we can start to see the differences between the changes, what's leading to the differences in the revenue. So if all you've ever done is spent the exact same amount on every campaign across 2.5, 3 years, the modeling won't really be able to tell much differentiation. So having that change is really important. So it's not so much about, oh, okay, if I spend $100,000 or more a month, I can get value from this. It's more about the differences in how you spent that money, as well as the differences in the revenue that's come in on different days.
And for those who we've implemented this internally for our clients, what impact have you really seen this drive for their business?
So one of the great functionalities of modeling is the ability to predict change based on a change in input. For example, one of our clients can come to us and say, we've had our budgets cut this month, so I need to understand what impact on revenue can I expect if I bring down these budgets. And the modeling will be able to say, based on your historical data that we fed in, we can see that when you pull spend from campaign A, B, C, and D, your new revenue is now going to be 1, 2, 3. And that can help showcase to the business that, wow, okay, when we divest in advertising, we're actually going to bring in a lot less revenue. And potentially the scale at which the revenue drops is going to be significantly higher than the drop in the media investment.
And that's so incredibly powerful. That's something we talk a lot about. And I did a digital edge with Greg DeSantos in the US and talked about how marketers need to have conversations with CFOs and really bring to light the impact that marketing is having, and talking in numbers, and really showing them that it's not about clicks, it's not about impressions. It's bottom line is, if we do this, this is the business impact it'll have, and that is such a powerful tool as a marketer to have.
I can give you one real world example. So we ran a modeling campaign for a retail client here in Australia. So they sell large furniture. They've got several stores across the country, and as well as the online store. And what we found was that the store had traffic light sales, so green, amber, red, and the differences in the sales meant different discounts in store. When we actually applied the modeling and we took how much money was spent in the advertising campaign to drive those people in store, and then when one of the three promotions was applied, even though the transactions were still there, the sales were there, the bottom line revenue had a negative 5% impact. So the advertising campaigns spend plus the discounting in store actually led to less revenue, even though the sales increased. And so that was a really big aha moment for the client, because they could understand that because they're investing in media, they're investing in advertising, as well as applying significant discounts in store, the combination of that just wasn't working out. The other two promotional campaigns actually proved to have incremental revenue growth, which was great and had quite a lot of profitability in there. But this was the first time that the client was actually able to understand that investment in media plus in-store discounting could have a negative impact. And you can't get that from just incrementality testing or from just attribution. You have to have the combination of the modeling, the hypothesis testing, and the attribution campaigns to really see that bottom line impact.
And I suspect that is something that a lot of businesses are doing at the moment, is promoting some sort of discount in store. And you never really consider, that seems like just the go-to thing that you do, and never really consider, is it actually benefiting you? Probably really important to consider in the run-up to Black Friday.
Yes.
Now, this wouldn't be a digital podcast if we didn't talk about AI. And I'm not going to lie, AI and measurement is one of my favorite things. I do not claim to be a numbers person. And the sheer amount of data to have something far smarter than me go through and be able to pick apart the really intense detail that you might not be able to see the patterns of as a person. What is the impact of AI going to be on measurement overall? And is this something you're excited about?
Very excited. Very excited to see how businesses can leverage AI. And I think, to be honest, I think we're scratching the surface right now. We're still getting to understand the true meaning behind having those automations and that artificial intelligence really deep dive into our data sets. In terms of how it can help businesses at the moment, things that take time, that take manual actions, they're the ones that are costing what I'm calling man hours. So a perfect example is at a previous company, one of the clients is a travel agency, and they have many stores physically located around Australia, and they had all their Google Maps reviews under separate accounts. And so in order for an individual within the business to review each and every store, we were estimating roughly 15 to 1600 hours a year for that person just to log into the systems, download the reports, collate them into a single file, and then share them within the business. And so that's when you add it up over month after month after month of the year, 1500 to 1600 hours is quite a lot of time. So introducing, not necessarily AI, but introducing automation to help pull that data into a single source, save that time. The second step, once all that data was in a single source, we could then use AI to understand, well, what's the meaning? What are the customers actually saying? Yes, they might type certain words, but what is the sentiment behind their reviews? And so all of a sudden, we were able to collate nearly 400 stores plus worth of reviews into a few categories of sentiment. So yes, they might have been talking about the in-store experience, but really they were disappointed by the actual destination of the holiday. And so that automation and that AI really helped unlock the power of being able to understand the true meaning behind reviews. We did actually take it a step further, and we built a large language model that would come up with responses for both the positive and the negative reviews. And so that was really interesting to see what the model would respond. Now, obviously, we didn't automate the process of posting those answers as well, but there was someone to review what the posts were.
I love hearing all these examples about the really exciting stuff you can do with automation and AI, because it really makes it a bit tangible, because I think a lot of people are just a bit overwhelmed with the speed of advancement and the speed of what you trying to keep up with that. What can I actually do with it? We started this conversation talking about trust. Are we in a position to trust the results that AI are giving us?
Trust is a very tricky word because there's a very common saying which everyone knows: garbage in, garbage out. So if we don't understand what we're feeding the models, the large language models, the mixed media models, the AI itself, if we don't understand that, then how can we trust the output? So again, it boils back down to the theme of this session really, is like, do we have an effective measurement strategy? Do we have a document which dictates how things should be collected, where they should be stored, how do we define what the actions were, where the data can be used? All of this that sits within what we call a data schema. It needs to be really well defined, and that's what's going to help fuel the understanding of those large language models and the mixed media modeling. So without that solid foundation, we don't really know what we're building on top of. If you do have a really good foundation, if you do have a well-defined data schema, then yes, the trust will come.
How should businesses set themselves up for success in this respect? So, should they have a data person in-house? If they don't have a data person in-house, what kind of partner should they be looking for? Do they need a partner?
Yes, you always need a partner. That partner is us. No. Ideally, you need someone who understands the core of your business. And so having someone within your business that understands the data and where it's stored and how it's collected and how it's accessed, but most importantly, takes ownership, that is going to be key and fundamental to growth. And they can work with partners or agencies because that's what's going to unlock the scale. So by having one person do everything, it's going to be impossible to grow. By having one person who understands the fundamentals of the business and understands the fundamentals of the data, and then they work hand in hand with agencies like us, that is what's going to unlock the scale of growth rather than just having one person do everything.
Now, looking ahead, if you were to advise CMOs and marketing leaders starting from scratch with measurement today, really where is it that they should be looking to begin?
So ideally, the first spot they should be doing is there is a whole bunch of introductory courses on what is AI and how AI can be used. If you're not looking into artificial intelligence as a tool, you're already behind the eight ball, right? a lot of companies out there are already building different versions of AI for different applications. And so if you're not doing that right now, you need to start. I know the Google Cloud platform does have a lot of learning resources which are free, video-based learning platforms and I've used several of them under Skillshop. So I'd recommend going into that and starting to learn and take some of those courses.
Now, what's one big mindset shift you think marketing leaders need to make to truly outperform with measurement?
So that's going to come down to really understanding your business. So understanding what you're trying to achieve, how your customers are going to go about doing that, and being able to bring multiple different data sources into one. The biggest mindset shift that marketers are going to have to cope with today, not everything can be tracked. We used to be
that
able
breaks my
to.
heart.
We used to be able to, but in today's age with multiple devices, with privacy laws, with ITP, not every single action is going to be able to be tracked back to individual users. And so being able to model the data and understand how different points connect to each other without having that connecting bit in the middle is going to be critical to growth. So a small example is if someone engages with an email campaign and then 3 or 4 days later signs in through a different device, being able to do that back end connection on email campaign clicked, user logged into the website, has to happen with some sort of database connectivity. You need to bring in the two different data sources into a single source, and then that connection needs to be made there.
Now, you talk about really needing to know your business, and now you might not have an answer for this, and I'm just genuinely curious. Have you ever had an experience where what the marketing team thought was the goal didn't align with what the business thought? Was there kind of this disconnect between the two that you had to work through?
Interesting. I don't think I've ever experienced that one.
Then we've got great clients.
Yeah.
Everybody's really aligned. I love to hear it.
One thing I will probably maybe say on that, it's interesting being here in Australia. So Australia is a very unique ecosystem because we are a Western culture and we have quite advanced needs. It's very, very advanced needs, similar to the US and the UK. But the problem is we have a third or less of the population. So it means that when things are analyzed at scale, that scale here is much smaller. So we have to work a lot harder to really understand what users are doing from a much smaller data set. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So our population is much smaller, and then in fact that over in New Zealand, they're just as advanced, just as progressed as any of the Western countries, but their population is even smaller than ours. And so it becomes really hard to understand trends, for example, when you have such a low population base. And so we have to really, really consider what we're tracking, how, why. So having those foundations is critical for us here.
Yeah, I suspect that's not a challenge that you really see in the US.
No.
Is there anything, Ash, that we haven't talked about or I haven't covered that you think is really important for people to be aware of?
I think it's really important for businesses, especially that marketing team, to really, really stress and understand what data they have. Because there's a lot of nuggets that you can uncover. And a really good example is, and I hate to show my age, but maybe I think it was like 12 years ago now, I was at Google and we were working with a job search engine here in Australia. I'm sure people can figure out who that is. And what we actually were able to do was they were able to associate the user profile and how complete it is with the percentage likelihood that that person will be able to find a job. And so what we were able to do is we were able to take that understanding and that data and feed it into the advertising campaigns and then only show if, say, for example, Lisa, you were on Google and you were searching for a new job, they could advertise to you and say, hey, Lisa, you've only completed your profile by 30%. Did you know you're going to be 6 times likely to get a job offer if you complete your profile? And so we were able to use the smarts of their engineering team combined with the audience targeting capabilities of the platforms that they were using. And so that was amalgamating multiple different teams. And it came down to, well, what data does this company collect? Where is it stored? How can it be used? How can it be leveraged by other platforms? Again, culminating the fact that we had a solid measurement plan and a measurement framework.
And what I really love about that example is how customer-centric it is. Everything that they're doing is for the value of that customer trying to get a job. And that is, like, I love examples like this that are just so smart, but at its core, it solves a challenge for that customer who wants to get that job. It's really quite special. Yeah. We're coming to the end of this interview. So I've got 2 more questions, which I ask everyone. Firstly, what is your favorite ad campaign of all time?
This is very uniquely Australian, but there was an ad campaign, and for the life of me, I can't remember the brand, which sounds pretty silly. It was a TV commercial, but it was a whole bunch of just Australian blokes, men, like at their core, running in a field, singing a song along the lines of, "This is a big ad. A very big ad." And for the life of me, I just can't remember the brand. I think it was a beer ad, or lamb. It was one of the two. But I just think that is my favorite. It just the play on what a man should be was hilarious.
I feel like we're gonna get people in Australia listening, being like, "I remember that ad." Yeah. And then my second question is, what's your favorite piece of tech?
At the moment, we're over in our office here in Sydney, we're actually really getting into the AI capabilities within Google. And one of the functions we've actually been doing, and it just blows my mind that this is capable of doing it. We curate a monthly newsletter for our clients. And we just have, platform updates, industry updates, just tech news in general, and we send it out to our clients. And what we noticed over the years is that because as we've been sending a monthly update, month on month on month, the engagement has over time been slowly dropping. And so one of the guys on my team, he actually just put the update into Vertex AI, and it generated an audio podcast of the newsletter.
Wow.
And since we started sending that out, we've actually seen not only more engagement with the newsletter, but a few clients have actually emailed through saying, wow, this is great. We would love this. So it does beg the question, is this AI?
I've tried to do an audio podcast. I've actually trained AI on my voice, which was really scary how accurate it was. 15-second audio upload, and it was like, so maybe. You never know.
Maybe.
Amazing. Ash, I've had an incredible time talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I really enjoyed today's conversation with Ash. It really offered a clear look at how marketers can build trust in their data and take a more strategic, effective approach to their measurement. I know I will be taking some of that advice myself. If you'd like to explore this further, check out our article, Why CMOs Lack Confidence in Their Reporting and What They Can Do About It. You'll find it in the link in our bio. And as always, follow us on social or head to Incubeta.com for more insights to help you outperform. Until next time, I'm Lisa Morton, and this has been The Digital Edge. Thanks for listening.